Retirement Cafe podcast, climbing down the ladder into retirement. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased you can join me for the latest episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast. Chatting with me today is retired attorney and award-winning businesswoman Laura Black. She has discovered that as a mature woman, mother and a wife, it can be harder to find true happiness after leaving a long-term career. In our conversation, Laura and I chatted about her book entitled Climbing Down the Ladder, A Journey to a Different Kind of Happy. The book investigates how women can keep their identity after losing their business card. I hope you enjoy listening to Laura as she gives a positive insight into aging and how to make the most of your retirement years. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Laura Black.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's great to meet you. And you're here especially all the way across the pond to talk about your new book, which I think came out in January. Climbing Down the Ladder. Tell me about the book, where the idea came from, who you are.
Thank you. As a woman in the workplace, in my generation, the baby boomer generation, we had so much advice on how to get to the top. But we lacked role models. We lacked women role models for the baby boomer generation. And I found out that once we got to the top, we didn't have those role models. Now what? We made our goals. We went as high as we would have liked to go or decided to go. And now what do? We look down, and I remember the first morning after I left the workforce, I was the CEO. I started a legal staffing company with a partner, and we spread, and we became one of the biggest around. We were all over. And we sold out, and I stayed on. And the first morning after I left the workplace, and I woke up without an alarm, I said, okay, now what? And I had converted my son's bedroom into a home office. So I went in there, and I had new file pads, and my computer was all set up, and my stapler, I had all the equipment, and I was playing around, and the internet went out. And I didn't know what to do, and I unplugged the router, plugged it back in, nothing. And I said to myself, how am I going to manage without an IT department? What am I going to do without an assistant? But then the scarier part was manage what? And it was tough, and I realized I wasn't alone. There's over 29 million retired baby boomers, and therefore, I wrote this book of my story, how I got through this stage of life, which is a fabulous stage. Yeah. But we need a little validation and a little normalization of the angst and of the identity crisis we will experience or might experience.
Sure. So Laura, just taking a step back. So you're an attorney, you're running a successful company. The first question I've got for you is, was it your choice to retire, or was it kind of like, this is, it's time for you to go now because, we're finding someone else to go? Because I think that's quite key to anyone's transition into retirement.
Yes. No, it was my choice.
Your
this
choice.
Was planned out. I sold my company. I decided to stay on for X amount of time. So it wasn't that I didn't want to leave. I was thrilled with the experience, everything that came up. It was that I was so busy thinking about bottom line profitability and how to leave the company in great shape and all those things. I never really said, what will I do next? And I think it's difficult while we are working to know what we'll do next because there's not a lot of room in our brain.
No.
And we do need some time. I tell people all the time, don't rush in because so many of us want to avoid that void. So anything that comes up where I'm in, we're chairing every committee and we're getting on every board or we're doing new startups, whatever we're doing because we're afraid to have that downtime.
Yeah.
And we need that downtime.
Absolutely. And you mentioned in the book, you kind of, you suddenly, you've planned this retirement, planned this next stage of your life, i.e. to the point of I'm stopping working and now I'm going to do something different. When you're sitting there with your cup of coffee and you're looking out of the window and you're already suddenly now, right, I now have this space. How did that feel?
Scary. It felt, there was no ground. There was no structure, purpose. And when we retire, it's also at the same time where there's a lot of other losses in our life. Usually around retirement age, if we've raised children, they're out of the house. So we went all those years trying to juggle career and family, and we read all the books and all the advice on how to do it all. And all of a sudden, there's not all of it to do. The kids are on their own. Also, it's a time where most of us experience the aging of our parents. So either we've lost our parents or they're aging. The kids are out. We don't have a job. And we're at the age where we can feel some marginalization. We're not quite on top of technology or fashion. And we're at that time where I get a lot of eye rolls from my kids. And I'll go to an event and I say, gosh, are pantyhose still in? If so, are they black or nude? So you feel a little out of it.
Yeah.
So it's a tough time, but it's a wonderful time.
What did you do? Well, what was your antidote to this? I mean, obviously you've written a book, you've written a couple of books, but you're sitting there with your cup of coffee and you're thinking, I've lost all of this. How do I? What's the antidote to that?
Right. Well, first for me, I had to look back, and that's what the book's about a lot. I had to look back to see what motivated me so much in the first place. For some of us, it's a job. We're taking care of our family, we're supporting ourselves. But for many of us, it's more than that. So for me, making that new acquisition, getting the right hire, getting the great account was an adrenaline rush. And it was an excitement. And I also realized for me, it was proving. I grew up in South Florida where women had to be thin and beautiful and men were smart and business people. And I needed to prove that as a woman, I can do this too. So it was understanding that I don't have to prove anything anymore. And we all have to come to that at some point that we are enough, we've done enough, we no longer have to prove. And it took I read everything I could find on this subject. I talked to many, many people and came to the conclusion that from the time we leave the workforce till the end, that's a sacred space. And how dare we not maximize that time?
And so, talking of maximizing the time, what does that look like?
So, a great analogy that helped me so much is if you think about a wheel, and there's the sections, right? The spokes of a wheel. Well, our career took up most of the sections of our life. But there's all these other areas, and we don't have to replace career. All we need to do is maximize those other areas. So I divided my life, and I think this fits for most of us. There's relationships. When we're working all the time, we don't get to maximize all of our relationships. Maybe there's that college roommate you've wanted to reconnect with but didn't have the time. Or you have a chance to meet your child at their work for lunch. So relationships. There is spirituality, however we define that for ourselves, whether it's organized, or it's going for nice walks and feeling one with the universe, but that side of our brain. There is health. Now's the time where I couldn't say anymore, I don't have time to go to the gym, or I can't do long walks in the morning, or I can't go shop for healthy food. So there's health. There's learning. There's so much out there that we never got to really sample or delve into and say, does this interest me? I was all of a sudden able to go to museums and wonder about art and music, and I could go on and on. Any subject can be interesting if we're curious and open.
Yeah.
And leisure. Leisure's incredible. We can take up new sports, new hobbies, anything's leisure. Everything doesn't have to have a purpose. And community. We have time to give to our community however we'd like. There's so much need out there that we really can add to. So we have all these other areas, and I suggest to people to look at the areas of your life. Where would you like to spend more time? What can you enrich and enhance? And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling, and there's so much, and there is not a void. There's a surplus.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you look amongst your kind of peer group of the baby boomers that you talk about, what areas kind of frustrates you about that, that peer group and that age group?
I think the most frustrating thing is being too hard on ourselves. I don't know why, if that's what motivated us to begin with to be successful, but I think we're really hard on ourselves, and it's hard to give ourselves permission. I ran into a friend, I tell this story in the book, ran into a friend who came into some unexpected money. A great aunt died and left her money. And I said, that's wonderful. What are you going to do? And she said, well, nothing too woo-woo. So I said, what do you mean nothing too woo-woo? Well, nothing frivolous. I'll put it away. And I said, what is wrong with woo-woo? What's wrong with frivolous? We're at a stage now where if we can afford it, we can take a trip that we didn't plan for 3 years. We could buy that dress even though we don't have a place to go. We could eat ice cream for breakfast. We can be free. And we are hard on ourselves. And we also need to redefine productivity. We have that message so strong. I have to be productive. I have to be productive. Well, what's productivity? I think at this stage of life, productivity is giving, taking in everything around us, contentment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for you now, talking about those areas, about productivity and about contentment, tell me about the aspects of your life that are delivering those to you.
There's so much. The biggest is my family. They fill me up. But it's even little things. I realized when I was so involved in the work world, it was almost like I had blinders on. I'm always looking towards the goal. And now, even taking a walk around the neighborhood, I never noticed flowers. I never watched a bird fly. I never watched everything that was around me because I was so focused. So if we're open and we're curious, there's so much fulfillment out there.
Yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned contentment. So tell me a bit more about that.
Contentment is not having that need to always strive, to always prove. I like to say it's not about having another ladder to ascend. It's relinquishing the need to climb. Back to, I am enough. I've done enough. I don't have to climb. I don't have to prove. I can just be. I can take in. I can be present. I can really listen when a friend talks to me. I can really see colors and sounds and experience instead of being driven.
And with this obvious wisdom that you now have from the time served, in essence, what words of advice do you give maybe your children or that generation as they're possibly very focused on their careers?
Yeah. I say really enjoy this journey. As you're climbing up, when the steps are stable, enjoy it. Take it all in, because one day you're not going to want to climb. Your ambition will be gone, and it's all going to be but a memory. So take it all in now. Also, in preparation for the next stages, start thinking what interests me. Even if you keep a notebook, one day I'd like to delve into stamp collecting, whatever it is, but be mindful of what other things interest us. And really take care of your relationships. There's so many studies now that that's a key to happiness, is the number of our good, solid relationships. So don't let them fall away while we're experiencing all this. But go for it. Enjoy it. It's an incredible time of life when we are looking up at those goals. And, from childhood, we're so programmed to be measured on everything. So we get grades in school. We try to get in the right college. We try to get the right job. We're always measured. There's always feedback on our accomplishments. This is a time where we don't have that outside feedback. It's free. So take it now, do the best you can, but one day you won't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah. And Laura, tell me about the thing that I observe but have no answer to, because I'm not a woman and I'm not, I have teenage children. But, the classic, how much time when I'm chasing my career and you're a successful businesswoman as you were, and the balance of being a mum and getting to the sports games and all those things. How did you balance that? When you reflect back, was it the right balance, or what is the again wisdom that you'd pass on to the generation coming behind you?
There's always guilt. It just kind of comes with the territory. And I think that's true for working parents and non-working parents. I've talked to a lot of non-working moms, and I was surprised. They felt guilty that they weren't in the workforce because they didn't have that role model for their daughters. So whichever way we play it, there is guilt. I think it's just part of, in the package with the parenting manual. It's just embedded. We can only do our best. I think the biggest gift we can give our children is a happy parent. Because if we don't model fulfillment and happiness, then what are they looking forward to in life? So however that plays out for us individually, that is the biggest gift, knowing mom's happy. No one's happy 100%, that's silly. But overall, life is good, and I have things to look forward to. I can look forward to aging. It's okay. My own mom was not happy aging, and I did not have a good role model. And when I see people who are thriving in their 70s, 80s, 90s, it makes me feel good. It's exciting. I also like to say we can do it all, but not perfectly. And for a lot of women, perfection's a goal, and that's such a not healthy goal. We can't be perfect, and we have to prioritize. So if we go to bed and there's dishes left in the sink, that's okay. If we're an attorney and we miss the deadline on a motion, it's not. So we need to prioritize. And I remember when my daughter had a class trip to a Broadway show. It was the same day I was meeting a client that I'd waited 2 years to get the appointment. And we do the best we can. I asked my son, who is older, if he would go and accompany her, and I'll meet up with them that night. So do the best we can. And when I began working, one of my big motivations was to provide for my children. I wanted them to have a life with some choice. Later on, being honest with myself, I realized even if it were not for the money, I would choose this path because it was exciting for me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We're teaching our kids about authenticity and being in touch with what fulfills them. And I think it's a great message for them.
Yeah. So what's next for Laura? What are the next 5-10 years look like for you?
Oh, I try to work on the next 5 minutes. I gave up long-term goals a long time ago. Take it as it comes. I enjoyed writing this book. I've received so many letters from people struggling, and I love validating and normalizing what they're going through in their own journey. And I enjoy speaking about it. Will there be another book? I don't know. We'll see. Right now, we travel, we're with our children, and we do so many things. It's a very rich life, but I don't take it for granted either. Every day's a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Laura, it's been fantastic chatting with you this afternoon. I really appreciate spending the time with you, and I commend your book to everybody who, here we go, there is another copy of it. You can get it, I'll put a link in the show notes where they can get a copy, and good luck with it all, and I look forward to hearing what's next for Laura.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks once again to Laura Black for joining me today. I hope that our conversation gives you a different perspective on how to make the best of your time after your career. To find out where to buy Laura's book, you can check out the show notes, of course, on our website at theretirementcafe.co.uk, where, of course, you'll find some useful links. As ever, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcast, as it really does help more people like you find us. And of course, for more interviews and retirement planning tips and videos, you might want to check out my YouTube channel, which is, if you just search for Justin King MFP, or you can click on the link which we'll put in the show notes. And of course, if you want to get in touch, you can reach me on hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk or via Twitter at Justin King CFP. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.